Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, episode 79. What is it? April 21st, 4/21, 2022. Jay, what's going on, man?
What's up? Again, just another beautiful day out here. Well, not a beautiful day as it was last time out here in Dove Springs District Park. We don't get the blue skies in the background today, but the temperature's still nice, enjoying that while we can. Spending some time outside before every day's a total scorcher and we don't want to do anything. It just melts you when you walk outside. So that's going okay. It's today's my wedding anniversary. So happy anniversary,
Hey now.
baby. That's 9 years. I guess if you made it this far, probably not, probably good for the long haul here, which I'm
That's the whole point, right?
So yeah, that's the deal. So yeah, so that's a big day for me. But yeah, how's everything going with you, man?
It's good, man. Good. Yeah, springtime. Can't complain. Weather's warming up. Flowers are blooming. Things are good. So
good deal.
Well, speaking of springing or sprunging, or however we want to describe it, new beginnings and all those things, we had a new building open in Austin this week. I know, shocker to everybody, right. But this one is actually related to what we discussed on this show with the Moody Center opening up, not to be confused with the Moody Amphitheater or the Moody Theater, but the Moody Center. What do you think? Have you seen the images going around? They let the media in. Now, I think today actually is the day that the public can go in and start checking things out. I think there's a concert. Was it John Mayer is the first show?
Yeah, John Mayer was last night. Earth, Wind, and Fire was Tuesday night. That was exclusive invite only for the Earth, Wind, and Fire show. I don't know how the Bacon and Egg Show didn't get an invite to that, but we'll work on making those connections there. But yeah, no, I actually have someone that worked for me at the old day job is working over there. So I got to see some pictures of the inside of that a couple of weeks ago while they were finishing things up. So it's a beautiful facility, just like you would imagine. They're very, they're don't expect to not spend money when you walk into those doors. That's sort of the deal there, and to be expected. But yeah, man, it's one of those things where we're not going to be able to get season tickets like we did for at the Drum.
No,
same value, man. That's not the same deal anymore over there. The cost of business is going up, man, but that's sort of to be expected. And if it's at the expense of maybe, they keep using the word intimate about that place, Kerry, the intimate environment. And anything is intimate compared to the Drum, compared to the Irwin Center. But they keep using the word intimate when they describe the Moody Center, man. So have you seen pictures? What have you seen and what about it? And are you excited about the new building?
Yeah, I think I am excited about it. Well, was there any less intimate of a building than the Irwin Center? I mean, like in multiple ways, like that was one of the least intimate. However you want to.
You mean aside from the piss and stale popcorn smell that permeated throughout that building? Is that what you mean?
Well, some people might find that intimate. Some people might, but I think most of the general population probably wouldn't. But hey,
Yeah. To each his own.
Yeah, you mentioned the season ticket thing. I did when they were, the media was doing the rounds and they were showing all the different lounges, and they had the Moet Lounge at the Moody Center. I'm like, yeah, that is not the Center Court Club. They will not be serving the chili at the Moet Lounge at the Moody Center. So it's man, I think it's going to be hard pressed to find an arena for big time college basketball that's going to be the level of luxury. And I mean, it's a brand new arena. What do you expect? It's a bright shining diamond in CDC's collection of facilities upgrades. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see a game there, though. I make fun of like the lounges and the comfort and all those things, but the one thing I did notice is the pictures of the stands and where the court's going to be. you can tell the difference in size, and you can tell how close everybody's going to be to the court. I am excited to see how it translates to basketball. It's going to be
Yeah.
really, really interesting.
100%. And the only bright shining thing that I'd like CDC to bring in is one of those crystal trophies that they used to bring. I guess they don't even do that anymore, do they? Whatever it is, I'd like
No, it's
to
the
see some
phallic
trophies in the trophy
playoff
case.
thing.
Oh yeah. Well, whatever it looks like, that's all I'm worried about in terms of CDC bringing in that things that are shiny. Bring me trophies, Chris. Okay. You told me at the Irwin Center when you shook my hand and looked me in the eye that we were going to do this thing. And I need you to follow through on that, bud. Okay. In multiple sports, not in the big money sports, not just, tennis
Jay,
and soccer, which is great. Swimming and diving. Good. Awesome.
did
But,
Texas win a tournament game this year?
they did. Texas won a tournament game this year. So we're doing it, I
Did the
guess,
damn
according
thing.
to CDC.
According to CDC, they did it.
Jeez. Well, and Kerry, you talked about the basketball environment changing real quick. Let's touch on a couple of pieces of basketball news before we move on. First, some
Yeah.
good news, man. Timmy Allen sticking around for using his super senior year to play another year for Chris Beard. For me, that was a key cog in if this team was going to keep on that trajectory. Which winning one tournament game is I guess it is an upward trajectory. So Timmy Allen coming back was a big deal for me. How are you? Were you excited to see that Timmy Allen was coming back? What was your first thought on that?
Yeah, it's great. I think I know we were frustrated at times with Timmy Allen last season, but I think another year with Chris Beard and some continuity with the roster, I think he's going to be more consistent. I think it's a big get, if you want to call it a get. I think, and now in not just basketball but college football, like you have to re-recruit these guys every year, and I think you could, the re-recruiting of Timmy Allen to keep him around for an extra year, I think is great. So who else is that? Is that it's going to be Allen. Bishop is back, right? And then the glue guy, Brock Cunningham. Am I missing anybody that has declared that they will return, or is that where we're at for right now?
I'm not sure that anybody else has said that they were for sure staying, but we definitely know somebody else that's leaving town, and that's Devin Askew, who it was, for me, it was one of those things where you saw the flashes in Askew, but then you also, with the writing on the wall here, you have Arterio Morris, who's a forward, but then you got the 2 point guard commitments. Dylan Mitchell's the 5-star point guard that's already signed, who some consider to be that number 1 point guard in the country. And then Rowan Brumbaugh, who's a 4-star, also a point guard that is committed but not yet signed for this class. I think the writing
signed.
was on.
I think he signed.
He signed already.
Because I saw the university tweet out the welcome.
Okay.
I
good.
think he did sign.
Either way, the writing's on the wall there, I think, and Askew's playing time was going to go from some to none as it was. I don't think this was going to be the right fit for him as it is. So, one of those things where it's a part of the deal and you just sort of move on from that. There were some moments for me, Kerry, that I saw that I was really happy with Askew's play, and he did sort of fit a spark plug type of a mold at times with his play. Just wasn't consistent enough, and you could chalk that up to a motion offense that wasn't full of motion at times, and some people that maybe weren't as willing to be a part of that offense to help that move the way it was supposed to move. But yeah, so Devin Askew's out. Any quick thoughts on Askew leaving the program?
Not anything different than what you have. I mean, I think we're on the same page there. It was seemed like it was a promising get. You pull someone that's was recruited by Kentucky. This is have high hopes, young player, but just sometimes it's just not a fit. So wish him luck and onward. So
yeah.
Well, speaking of, we'll transition now to a little bit of football talk. Jay, after our last discussion about Texas football, is Texas any closer to being back this week?
Kerry, I haven't answered this way in a while, but I'm going to say that, yes, this week Texas is closer to being back, although I'm not on this hype train that you see FanDuel has Quinn Ewers at plus 4,000 to win the Heisman, ahead of Bijan. Better odds than Bijan, by the way, to win the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, honestly.
You
I
know,
get that.
I'm not fully back on this hype train, but I do think that with the news of Ajayi Hall transferring over from Alabama, the wide receiver, I do think that that offense is taking a step in the right direction. This is an athlete, man. Like, this is somebody that immediately comes in and, makes this offense better. You look at the stats from last year, man, and it's, only 4 career catches. 2 of them were in the national title game. Both of them were bigger plays, but also 2 drops. But you look at that, I mean, he has a connection to Sark and Banks in terms of the recruitment to Alabama and stuff like that. So that's already there, and it made for an easy transition. How do you feel about this? And are you thinking that, are you as optimistic about his immediate impact into this offense as I am?
Yes, on that. Yeah, I think, man, this wide receiver room is loaded now. I mean, it went from Worthy and, an occasional contributor here and there, like Washington, and maybe have a couple big catches. But like, now this room is just loaded. I mean, with Nair, with Xavier Worthy, and now Hall, like, the weapons are there. And can Ewers be protected enough to get the ball to them? We'll see. You have to think Sark will scheme something up, but I'm excited about it. I mean, this is a ton of talent on the offensive side. There's a ton of talent on this roster, and I'm not quite. This move alone doesn't push me into the, oh, okay, this is this is it. This is what flips the switch. What it does do, though, is it provides more of a, I'm trying to think of the word here, but like, Sark is running out of the excuses are going away. The last few head coaches, there was either they didn't hire, a good enough staff, or they didn't do this, or they didn't have this, they weren't provided this. Sark he's had everything that he could ask for. He's got the talent, he's got the coaching staff. Like, there's not, if this team only wins 7 games next year, I don't know how you explain that away, given the amount of talent that they're starting to build up on campus.
It's really piling up. And that's the thing here, is like, can you go from just being an elite recruiter to translating that into being an elite head coach? And that's the question that needs to be answered with Sarkisian. Are we at a point where you can look at that and say, I'm confident that Steve Sarkisian is going to turn this elite talent into elite results? I'm just not there yet. I'm 5-7, and losing to Kansas at home has knocked me off of that pedestal of like, oh, we can turn it around at any time, which you can, because it's Texas. But I'm just not gonna be like full. I mean, I thought this was an 8-win team last year, so I already didn't think that this was like this was a world beater type of team. But obviously, we were all wrong in terms of what we were forecasting for this football team last year. 8 or 9 wins, sort of as a floor. 7 wins maybe even being a floor. But when you finish 5-7, and like I said, you lose to Kansas at home, and you get the 4th string tight end and Applebee's endorsement from making the game winning catch, like, you're far removed from being back, as we like to say on this show. Right. So, you add Hall, you add Nayor from Wyoming,
they're loaded.
The wide receiver room is loaded. You look at the running back room, that's
loaded.
Still loaded from last year. You got Quinn Ewers on campus now, who some people still aren't listing as the starting quarterback. I just think it's a matter of time. I mean, it's like one of the worst kept sort of secrets, I guess, if you will. You've got to treat it like a competition. If you're Sark, I get that, but that's Quinn Ewers' team here going into the fall. And I mean, yeah, it's a loaded roster, and we haven't even talked about the tight end Jatavion Sanders, who is by all accounts having a tremendous spring and is the talk of camp. This is going to be a dynamic offense, and we've talked about this, man. The offense didn't give up 57 to Kansas.
Bingo.
Bingo. So
and that's where you were mentioning Kansas. That's where I was going to go next, is like, this is all fine and good. You give up 57 points to Kansas. It doesn't matter if, who you've got at quarterback or how loaded the wide receiver room is. Like, can your defense keep Kansas from scoring 57 points? And, there's some moves on the defensive side of the ball too. We talked about Mathis. There's some players that can be some difference makers there, but I just need to see it. And that's where, Sark needs to prove, you mentioned this, Sark needs to prove he's a better game day coach than he was last year. And that, again, like the excuses are, not there, they're going away. How often was it like, oh, well, Charlie Strong's a decent coach, but he just doesn't have a quarterback. Swoops isn't the guy. Like, he can't make the plays that maybe this offense wants to do and all that stuff. You go and get Quinn Ewers, well, that type of excuse is gone.
Yep.
And like, it's a 6-win season is going to be pretty indefensible, honestly. Like, how does that happen? But I mean, it happens, but I mean, like, how do you explain that away? But
yeah, well, you've got these polls, before we move on, you've got these polls that, these ESPN power ranking polls that have Texas like number 6. And it's just like, okay, that's a combination of a lot of things, but the Big 12 being down in a down conference.
It's a yearly tradition.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, the Big 12 is going to be down, so Texas is going to capitalize. They got the recruits in that are going to make the changes here. You made the changes, I just can't force myself to totally buy into that at this point when we haven't seen anything that indicates that this is a team that's going to go out and win 10 games and win a conference championship and compete for that, to be there at the end in that conversation. It's difficult for me to buy into that right now until we see it with Sark. And he's definitely on a show me now instead of telling me stuff.
That's it.
When you get a guy in like Hall, when you're trying to establish your culture and you bring in a guy like Hall that was suspended from Alabama for violation of team rules, right after you get after Ojimo about, keeping things in house and the way that you handle your business. And it's like, okay, so this is, again, you're telling me one thing and you're showing me another. So which is it, Sark? Like, are we building a culture here, or are we amassing talent to try to overcome the lack of whatever it is in your locker room?
Is it a player-led
culture? Right.
Or is it a coaches determine when and where to apply the culture system, right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, in any work environment is a garbage way to
it never
lead
works.
Anybody. It never works that way. So are you employee driven? And in this case, are you player driven? Or are you boss driven? Are you coach driven? Which one is it? And I don't think that he really knows. And unfortunately, that's the vibe that he's given off to me. And unless they figure that out real quick, then we're going to see this turmoil again. It's a huge problem. And especially now, and we've talked about this. I'm happy for players getting their money and getting paid. But this is a different
whole
world
new
that
element
he's
to
going to have
it
to
now.
manage now. So, and that sort of thing where you got guys that have exclusive deals to message board sites and things like that, hey, here's that 20 grand that we talked about. Dish, what's going on in this locker room right now, even more so than what's happening before. Now you've got people that are willing to pay, that can pay you for that information. So like it's a slippery slope to go down, and only time will tell if Sark's going to be able to turn this thing around. But again, we haven't even touched on the spring game here. I don't have any expectations really for the spring game. I'm hearing it's going to be
scrimmage.
A glorified practice, right? So I mean, like, it is what it is. There, I wouldn't be disappointed if Bijan played one snap and
Uh,
then held his helmet.
and that's what I think going back to last year, people look at what the quarterbacks did in the spring game. Like, it's so hard. It never translates to what you actually see in the fall. So I think there's going to be you can predict it. There's going to be a lot of hype, a lot of, oh, this player did this. Look at this quarterback looked better than this, or did this. They ran this scheme. Don't read too much into it. We'll hit on it next show. Of course, we'll talk about it. But
yeah,
it's a spring game. It's an open practice. So,
but I do think, Kerry, that we will be able. The eye test will tell you that Quinn Ewers is a better quarterback.
Yeah.
Than Hudson Card, and that's one thing that I do think we'll be able to take away from that is just by watching them out there, that your eyes will not deceive you, as our friend Mick Foley says.
Absolutely.
That you will be able to see the zip and the placement and everything from Quinn Ewers will be different than we'll see from Hudson Card. So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to get that in there because that to me will be like the one takeaway that people, I think,
that's probably it.
From the spring game, that
is the first actual look at him.
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, man, let's move on here real quick. Let's hit on this baseball team, which is now, when I looked it up on the Baseball America poll, fallen to number 20 in the country. What the hell is going on with the Sluggin Horns?
It ain't the slugging that's the problem.
Well, right. I mean, the name is apt.
Yeah.
I mean, they're hitting the ball. They're scoring runs.
Yeah. And we
don't call them
Melendez.
The pitching horns.
We don't call them the fireball horns or whatever. Yeah, the throwing horns. We call them the slugging horns. And Melendez had that injury scare with the shoulder sliding back into the base. And, he had to sit out a little bit to get right. He's hitting bombs again. Our guy Trey Faltini, hit the walk-off last night to get that, to split the series against an Air Force team that was under 500, or still is, I guess, coming after this 2-day, midweek sort of series here where you give up 24 runs, Kerry, to
in 2 days
military academy in 2 days. This isn't a full weekend series. You're talking about 14-2, and then you get a 12-10 victory. So, Kerry, is there this is a team that I don't feel like is going to, like, hosting a super regional, if you get that far from me, is ship has sort of sailed here. And are we even talking about a team that's going to be able to host a regional? Because they're going to make the big tournament. Like, they're going to get into the postseason. Like, they're 26-13, I believe, is the record right now. Like, they're going to be in unless just something is absolutely which obviously is not out of the realm of possibility here. But man, what's going, like you said, is there a way out of this at this point?
I don't know, honestly. And that's what, we went from talking about, like, all right, this team is good enough to still be in the top 10, top 8. This was before the Kansas State series, our last show, when we were talking about, like, this is still a good enough team to, be in contention for hosting a super, and, they should be okay. And now here we are a week later, and this team's on the verge of falling out of the top 25. And they're losing to bad teams in bad ways. Like, this is not, I mean, this thing's like kind of spiraling fairly quickly if you look at it, like just how quick we go from, like, this is a top 8 team to now they're number 20, and the schedule doesn't really get any easier. It's still conference play. They still got some tough opponents coming up. I do think they're in the tournament, but I think they are really at risk of not even hosting a regional if this, and that's what I just don't understand it. We haven't been seeing, like you mentioned, Melendez, the injury scare. There hasn't been this, like, rash of injuries that are knocking, like that he's having to use sawdust and glue to hold a pitching staff together, or a lineup. Like, that's not the case for Coach Pierce. So what is going on here? And that's what's concerning to me. You could almost write this off if you were missing, a number of players, and it's just one of those bad luck seasons. They're just playing bad baseball. They're hitting the ball, but, like, they're just not, like, it's just ugly.
Well, pitchers are missing their spots. I mean,
Right.
it's not good. And we talked about Stevens as the second starter. It's, I guess, your Saturday starter, even though last week, because of, point is Tristan Stevens is really struggling with locating his pitches right now, and that doesn't help when when it almost feels like Saturday comes around and it's almost like we have to already overcome ourselves in order to be able to find a way to win this game here. And losing that series, you lose a series to K-State, which we were talking about ahead of time. Like, that was a thing where you at least got to get a series win and possibly even, take them all from K-State. And you go up there and you only take one from K-State in that series. And then you come back and you split against Air Force. This team is not playing good baseball, like you said, right now. And it's really, and David Pierce was asked this in an interview. It's like, well, where do you go? Do you have anybody like, and he's like, our guys. Like, this is who we have. We have to find a way to make this work. Like, there's no like magic mid-season trade to make where you bolster your bullpen.
Oh no, for
which
sure.
has been just as big of a problem as starting pitching has, by the way. This is not just a rag on starting pitchers rant. The pitching staff in general has not been good, which may lead to some changes in the off season. But it's just, can they turn it around now? Can you take this, this obstacle and overcome it as a team? And I do think that Coach Pierce is a good coach, and that he can find a way, hopefully, to right this ship enough to where you can at least feel like you got a chance to get out of the regional round of that first round of the postseason. You got to give yourself a shot, at least. But it's hard at this point to feel like that Texas would advance any farther than that, just because you're looking at the matchups and how often you'd have to beat somebody. Just don't feel like the pitching is there right now.
No.
Can they overcome it? Yeah, but I just don't feel like it's there, man.
No, and he says our guys are our guys. I mean, yeah, these guys were good enough to open up the season ranked number 1 in the country. So what's happened?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be an interesting few weeks. But real quick, we got a couple minutes here. Let's hit on Austin FC. It's been a wild week for Austin FC. Go on the road and get a absolutely crazy first win in a really long time on the road at DC, down 2-0, final 10 minutes, score 3 to get out of DC with all 3 points, and first road win in a really long time. Other results fell their way as well, and they're up to second place in the Western Conference on 14 points, third overall in the league. That's not bad. So everybody was feeling pretty good about this club coming out of Saturday until last night. The U.S. Open Cup against at San Antonio FC, a USL, the second division, from the second division. And they just go and lay a complete egg in San Antonio, knocked out of the cup. So that cup run didn't even really get started. Jay, we watched this last night. What the hell happened with that? Like, what do you make of going down to San Antonio and starting a strong lineup? We talked about this before. Driussi, Diego Fagundes, like, they went in there with an intention to win that game. This wasn't a like we're playing the kids, and they still didn't pull it off. What did you make of last night?
Yeah, we were joking that, it was Owen Wolf season, like I thought we were going to see a lot more of him. And he did end up, getting some playing time, but I thought that Wolf was somebody that would get a lot of run, all things considered, that, Austin would, as soon as we saw the lineup, it's like, okay, let's go. You get out ahead early, and then you sort of
rotate it at half.
Rest, and you rotate everything at half, use all your subs, which he did use all his subs, but more because he had to, because the game goes to extra time, and you got to put 30 extra minutes plus on those legs with the league match coming up on Saturday, and you still don't come out of there with the victory. The defense was frustrating to watch. Josh Wolf's sort of tactics, I think, in terms of really only playing one center back, and then he came out after the game and said, "Well, we were a little nicked up, and this, a knee and a cramp and this," and it did not look sharp at all in the back. Keller's still learning his way about this, about this level of play. Their first round pick. It just did not look it did not look like the Austin FC that we've seen in this MLS season in terms of continuity. And it's just not that there weren't opportunities for them to score the ball, because there were. And I do feel like do I feel like the result was totally fair in terms of how the game went? I think Austin could have had 4, honestly, but they didn't. And then you end up giving up the goals that, at the end there, that it's just a frustrating loss to take. And like you said, your cup run stops as soon as it starts. Did you have any immediate takeaways from that last night, and sort of how? Yeah. What were sort of your takeaways from that one last night?
It was frustrating because it felt like it was reverting back to what we saw last season, where it was disorganized. Some players switched off at times. Wolf's tactics, left a lot to be questioned, I think. What worries me is that even though this team is getting results in the league, we haven't really seen them play a full 90 minutes consistently. That first half against Minnesota, a couple weeks ago, that was then in the second half, they're able to pull out, get a 1-0 win against Minnesota. There's just the Seattle match. You're starting to see this trend of 1/2 games. The DC match is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
That was maybe the worst that they've looked, that first half against DC, when they let in 2. And honestly, that was another one. DC could have had more. Yep. They could have ran away with that, but Austin hung in a couple of crafty changes by Wolf and Danny Hosen coming back from the dead. They were able to salvage some points. They were able to pull that off, but you shouldn't have to do that every, that's what's concerning about this. And this is now we're looking at, a Vancouver team coming to town, only 4 points on the season. They sit in 13th in the West. They're 27th overall in the league. But now Austin's looking at, you had Fagundes play 120 minutes last night. Kolmanic, I think, had 120 minutes. You're looking at now a really depleted roster going into Saturday. And, and that's what makes the cup thing so frustrating. You better win that cup match if you're going to dedicate those resources to that match that you're not going to be able to use for a league game coming up. And that's what this could turn into. They always say, don't let one loss beat you twice. This could be a really tricky game coming up Saturday for Austin FC. It's going to be a lineup that probably hasn't spent a lot of time together. And as we saw last night, that doesn't really work with this club. When it's a lineup that's not used to each other is where we see them struggle. And I have a feeling that's going to be what we see on Saturday.
Unfortunately, it might have to be out of necessity, like you're saying, because
Right.
of the minutes that have been logged with some tired legs, man. And Fagundes is that guy that you never question his effort, because you always see that guy. That guy's motor is ridiculous. It's lots of praise on him for the effort that he gave last night in 120 minutes plus. And not to wrap up this on a negative, but the issues that Cecilio Dominguez is going through right now, and sort of what is taken away from the depth overall of this team, it's hurting this roster right now. And I think we're definitely going to see that this week, where his legs and his ability, his skill in a match where, again, like you said, this should be 3 points for Austin FC. Are we going to see this loss last night to San Antonio come back to bite Austin just because of just a lack of, the legs aren't there, man. And you've got options here, but like Wolf he seems to be pretty rigid in terms of the system that he's running and the substitutions that he's making. And I almost thought that I would have liked to see Gallagher get some run on the wing last night, as opposed to the normal left back slot that he's been filling when he comes in off the pine. It's those sort of things that I feel like he's in this box right now as a manager, that he's feeling like, well, this is where I have to be and this is going to work or not. I'd like to see some more flexibility out of Josh Wolf with his substitution patterns, with the decisions that he's making. It has worked within the league so far. They're obviously sitting high in the standings, and we're very pleased with that as supporters of this club. But that's going to be something for us to watch as this season progresses, as we work our way through these fixtures. Is that going to become a detriment to this club?
Well, it bit him in
Is that
San Jose.
rigidity?
It bit him in San Jose with getting a 2-0 lead in the first half, and then just deciding to bring on, Redis and a group of backups in the second half. And San Jose scores a couple, and Austin only gets out of there with a point against a team that's worse than Vancouver.
Redis was not good last night.
He
was not.
I don't want to bash the guy too much, but he doesn't have any business coming on with this club. And you saw that against the second division team last night. That's not even his level. And he might start Saturday just because of the depth issues. And that's where I don't think Austin's going to lose this game. They've turned Q2 into quite the fortress, but just a draw, if you draw with Vancouver, is a really disappointing result.
That's a bad result.
And I know they can go, hey, we're still undefeated at home, but that's a bad result. And even though they got that win against DC, they still show these issues on the road. Sitting in second in the West is great, but I think there are some warning signs coming up about, if you look at the schedule, specifically the month of May is going to be a really difficult one for Austin. So let's
we discussed this in the preseason. You get the points where you have to get them, because
now.
That schedule is going to pick up. Is Austin going to finish in second in the West? I honestly don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
But you have to get those points now. So later on in the season, as your depth gets tested, as you pick up a couple of nicks here and there by some of your key players, like it's going to, it's going to end up catching up to you here. So got to get all three this weekend, man. And like you said, Q2 is definitely, they like to throw that out there. Q2 is the fortress. It's the, it's the place to be. It's if it's not the best environment in the league, it's definitely up there. And the players love to play Q2, but anything less than 3 points this weekend, like you said, is a disappointment. And I would use the word failure. So
yeah, they should cruise, but hey, we'll see. It's what they play the games for, right?
Yep. You play to win the games.
That's right.
Hello.
Playoffs. Yeah, we'll discuss playoffs as we get closer to that. Good grief. Yep. Well, all right, man, we'll call it here. Good stuff today, man. Let's we'll see what happens with the spring game this weekend. Exciting weekend. Spring game and Austin FC both on the same day, as well as Texas baseball. And spring is happening. It's happening. So
it has sprung. Yep.
It sure has. Well,
it has sprung.
Well, good stuff, man. Well, let's do this again soon, man. Let's shoot for another one next week.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Hook 'em.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.
Falling on 6th on a Saturday.